layer of yellowed orange on my orange. It's covering the whole thing. I went a little heavier on the outside, and that's why you have some darker area that looks like it's a little bit shaded. And I went very light in this area, which is going to have my highlight. The next layer I'm going to put on, I'm only going to put on halfway. Okay, and this is Goldenrod. I'm going to do the same thing. You're going to want to make it very smooth. Some of you who showed me their work, you're not cross-hatching enough. So you go in one direction, and then you turn the paper slightly, and you go in the opposite direction. That gives you a much smoother look. So I'm going to do this halfway with the Goldenrod. Now I'm going to add some details in it, but they're not like final details. This is going to be the color that I'm going to push into the orange. And here is a printout of the texture. I'm talking about these, okay? That darker hue that goes into the orange. And I'm going to do that in two different ways. Now I'm going to take my mineral orange and I'm going to create spots on the orange. Those are the little divots, and they're represented by little, they're kind of triangular in most of the pictures that I've seen. And when you get up really close, they sort of have a, not a full round, but a triangle. Now you have to take perspective into account. Down at the very bottom, I'm going to do them small. I put in a couple of larger ones just to, I was testing them. Then I'm going to get up here, and they're going to be about that size. As the ball comes closer to you, as it's rounding itself, underneath is going to get a little bit of spots. But this is going to get darkened up by a lot, so you're barely going to see these when I'm done. This is good enough for roughing it in. Now I know it doesn't look like anything I did in the first video, but this is much better and much easier. Now it looks like my orange has the measles, but it won't look like that forever. We're going to take Canary Yellow. And you see all this right around the edges of these spots? I'm going to go in with my Canary Yellow and I'm going to blend it out. You can go a little harder. I know I'm always preaching light layers, but with a blending, you can go much heavier. Don't destroy your tooth, but pushing it down into the paper. They should be a little bit blurry and fan out to yellow. So I'm going to do that. I didn't say this wasn't tedious. I said it was easier. We're going to go in with burnt okra. And in the area where we did the goldenrod, I'm going to do a little bit of burnt okra here. Now I'm keeping this very light because I don't want to destroy my dots. I'm just putting in a little bit of shadow where the shadow goes on the bottom naturally with a sphere. Now, I don't want to see any heavy drawn lines on the edge. I'm just going in very lightly over everything, over my dots, all my colors, keeping that nice and blended. I can still see my details. Okay, my next color, I'm going to move on to Chestnut, which is a slightly darker version of burnt okra. Now, if you're working in the CMW books, this is when you get them out, okay? You've got chestnut, you've got burnt okra, very close. They blend well with orange, okay? You've got the Goldenrod, you've got Canary Yellow. Now, why do they all blend in so well? Well, these colors are on the redder side. Red, orange, yellow are next to each other in the color wheel. They're analogous, and they're always going to look good. So that goes in your CMW book, and you can write that down for each one of these colors. Now, if you could see a little bit here, I've got white going around here, here, and in here. Okay, this is going to be my area where it's going to have the highlight. So I'm going to take the chestnut brown, and I'm still going to work on around here and a little bit up here, leaving the middle. When you do that, you achieve the texture because it's pushed into the paper. It's going to be very hard to get that out. So you're still working in very light layers, but you can see how it's starting to develop. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Mahogany Red. Now you could choose Mahogany Red or dark brown. I'm choosing the Mahogany Red, one or the other. They're both going to function the same way. And I'm going to just do a little bit on the outside, just like this. I'm not going too far in it. I just want to make sure that I have a good edge on it. And the Mahogany Red sort of blends right in with the other colors. Here we have Mahogany Red going towards the browns, and then it gets darker. But they all have that reddish in it, and they all mix very well, these three colors. So that goes in the CMW book too. Mahogany Red, burnt okra, chestnut. And I would put it on all three of those pages. Now I'm working with a sharp pencil, nice defined line. Now that doesn't mean you're scrubbing in that line. We're doing a fine outside hard edge. Now since I built up the color, you shouldn't have to scrub it in to make that edge. Now at this point we're still layering. So we roughed it in, then we layer, then we're gonna blend. We haven't done any of the blending yet, except for like a little bit of getting the yellow in there and blending up that darker dot, but that's not the real blending that we're gonna be doing. That's just kind of setting the dot into the paper. Okay, now that's all I want to put in. I don't want to build that outside up without building the middle up. The next color we're going to get out is the Cadmium Orange hue. Now, what you're going to do with this, outside of the dots, don't touch the dotted area or the yellow. You're going to kind of weave in and out with this color. Just like that. You don't want to cover up that yellow, and you don't want to cover up your dots. So just like in between. Okay, I'm still keeping this white and the light going kind of around this way. I don't want to touch that. So I'm not going to go probably any higher on it. than this in my weaving. And I'm going to do that all over and around the whole orange. Around this time, you're wondering, well, what do you do up here with the dots being so close together? What you do is just continue as if you had a large dot, just weaving in and out. So now we have our lay down, and we're going to sort of move into the blending stage. Still don't touch this area, leave that very light. We're going to reinforce the colors that we used before. Now, instead of using my lighter, the mineral orange, I'm going to bump up the color. Okay, I've got my dark brown, and I'm going to reinforce some of the dots too. Do not go hard on the paper. Keep it soft. And you're not going to do every dot. Okay, just like that. And I'll put you on hyperlapse. Now we're going to go back to the beginning. And I'm going to get out my yellow to orange again. And I'm going to start blending things up down there. So a nice point. You're going moderately heavy on the paper now. And you're going to take that all over the bottom. Now leave some of that yellow sticking out. You can actually go back and forth with the yellow too. Do not rub, okay? You can just blend where the dots are and where the harder to blend areas are. Just using the tip. That's why I like the brush better than the nib. I'm surprised in the groups. A lot of people didn't hear about a blending pen. I thought everybody knew about you're supposed to use a blending pen with colored pencils. Some people you can use Gamsol. You want to just release the pigment. What's nice about a blending pen is, and Gamsol, kind of adds a little bit more tooth to the page. You can always get another layer on after. Don't let the tip sit on the page either, because then it'll start, if you do too much, it'll start pushing the color out of the way, and that's why you wait before you use a blending pen or any sort of blending medium. You want to have a nice amount of wax. If you use it too early, you spread that when you get like a white mark, and that defeats the purpose. Any of these lines that are hard, you want to keep it real soft. Now we have this area to work in. Okay, we have sand and cream. Very similar in color. Sand being slightly more yellow, if you could see. Next to each other. A good combination. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put cream right in the center here. Now, I really don't want to create any real detail in there, because the brightness of the light hitting it. And then I'm going to go in between as it dissipates. blending these up, the yellow into it. Cream is not really that creamy, just to let you know. There are other pencils that I prefer more than cream. Something about the formula in it I don't really like. Sand is a little bit better. And I'm not going to put sand in here because I want to keep that really light. But sand can go down. And you'll see it feels much better on the hand to be blending. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of white now to the highlighted area over here. And that's just to really blend it out. You want no hard marks in there. And then I'm using a very, very soft pencil. I'm using my Holbein white. You can use Prismacolor white. Or the Derwent Chinese white is good. Thing about using the Holbein white is, oh man, they are soft like butter, and you go through them just as easily. I'm going to start adding in details, and I'm starting with my pumpkin orange, and I'm just working in the top where the stem comes in. On the reference picture that I'm using, there's sort of like an S, because oranges aren't exactly perfectly round. It's the way they grow. So I'm going to add that in, a light line. Go. And I'm just feathering it. Now, if I make this side darker, it's going to look like the orange is sort of tilting that way. And then I'm using my Goldenrod on the other side. The only thing left on here is the details and just further your layers. You're just going to continue doing what you're doing. Adding more and more of the same colors back and forth. So I'm going to brighten this up and work on the top and getting all these things in. Now, this isn't final details. We'll do that at the end. This is kind of just blending everything up and getting everything on the page. I did a lot of work off camera because this video is getting so long, and I wanted to show you what I was doing, some of the tricks that I was using. This is a gummy eraser. Now, I have so many beautiful layers underneath that I can lift some of the color and get more of that mottled look by going in, twist. Go in and twist. That brings a lot of the yellow that I had put in earlier up and out over the orange that I put. I used cadmium orange hue over it very lightly, and now I just lift. Now, I've been doing this for about an hour, I would say. And another thing that I was doing to bring those dots further back into the page, I'm using my AFMAT eraser, and that's the electric eraser with a very fine tip. And I can go in and add little dots of white onto it. Now, you don't have to worry about taking too much off because you can go back, and I did this a lot. I did this pretty often. I'd go back and reshade. These are the final details that I'm putting in, and you just go back and forth, nipping and tucking wherever you see that needs to be shaded in more or highlighted more. Now, I removed a lot of the dots when I was I removed some of the dots down here and I added in more, but you can never get the dots completely off, which is what you want. And then I go back with my yellow, back and forth and back and forth, just adding in more highlights. Then if an area is too dark, I use the eraser. And then if it's not blending enough, I just use my blender and I blend it more into the page. The idea is not to leave any hard lines. Hard lines are only for the outside. Then to brighten up your bright spots, I'm going to use some Posca. Now, you don't want to paint it on. To get it to look really bright, you just add it to the center. Tap it down so that my edges aren't hard. Go back with my sand. Well, actually my cream. Now you could see that line that I put in earlier. You could still see it. And you want that because now it's deeper into the picture. And if you want it a little brighter, you can go in and just lightly make it darker. I'm using sandbar right now. Sandbar's got a little bit of green in it, and that will complement the green that I put in the stem area. I did it off camera. I used grass green and dark green, and now I'm using sandbar. We just want to unripen it a little bit. Make it a little bit on the greener side. Just at the top. Just like that. I'm going to put a little on the other side too. Now these final details can last longer than the whole picture. I can do final details for an entire day. And I can even make it a little bit more green. I'm adding in some spring green. Now green and orange make brown. Normally I say not to mix too much of that because it's not an attractive brown, but when you're using it, say with an orange or a piece of fruit that's not ripe yet, it works. So there's never a negative because I have so much brown already in this picture. When the green comes out in it, it's okay for it to turn a little bit brown. And then you get little bits of green. Now I'm letting the green go into the highlights slightly, just so that you really know that there's green in there. And then I'm going to go in with my sandbar again and just darken this up because it started to get lost. Now you notice I haven't used a drop of black anywhere in this picture. So as I said, this can last for hours, so I'm still using my dark brown, just darkening this up ever so much. And then I'm going to blend it in with my yellowed orange. I'm just softening up the shadow a bit. And for the shadow, I used some warm gray. So I think I'm going to call this for now because this is getting too long, and I'll do a final snapshot of it. Lime peel has a lot of yellow in it. I'm burnished at the top, so it's not changing much. Okay, I will snap a shot of it at the end, and I will see you in my next tutorial. Take care.